Welcome, everyone. It's late and it's right before Pesach, and this is the busiest time, one of the busiest times of the year. But I wasn't going to leave you on a cliffhanger, and I should say it's a little selfish too. I had these thoughts, and I want to download it. I don't want it stayed by me, so I'd like to share. Yesterday we did part one. This is going to be part two. How can you elevate your Seder and make it very futuristic, very much in the zone of the redemption Moshiach? So we went through yesterday a whole bunch of meditations we can do, beginning with meditation about the Seder itself, about the 15, about putting things down on the Seder plate, about the number 15 of the 15 simanim, 15 signs of the Seder. We discussed also Kiddush, the meditation for Kiddush, a meditation for washing of the hands after Kiddush. We discussed the meditation for karpas, the dipping of the vegetable in the salt water, and we discussed the breaking of the middle matzah, the Yitzchak matzah. All these ideas we discussed yesterday. Let's continue on, and now we are holding by the part of the Seder called Magid. Magid is the mitzvah in which we talk and relate the story. This is the main reading part of the Haggadah. This is the time that we are fulfilling a great obligation in which we are told that we should remember the day we went out of Egypt, especially the night of Pesach. It says, V'gada tolabincha, you should relate to your children. So we relate the Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. We relate the story of going out of Egypt. And it's interesting how most of the mitzvahs on Passover, on Pesach, relate to our mouth. Either we're eating or we're talking. A lot of eating to do, matzah, moror, and then a mix of matzah and moror and all the other stuff that, and the drinking of the 4 cups of wine and the afikoman and in the time of the temple, the paschal lamb. So these are all powerful. These are all mitzvot, commandments we do through eating. But there is also a mitzvah to relate. We have to tell the story of going out of Egypt, and as I told you yesterday, there are these signposts in which we follow along, which remind us where we're holding by the Seder. So right over here comes the signpost announcing Magid. It's the time to talk. It's the time to relate. Now, talking is very much connected to Pesach because the word Pesach, according to the mystics, according to the Arizal, comes from 2 words. Pesach means to leap, but Pesach also means peh, the mouth. And the samaches from the word Pesach is sach. Sach means to talk. So Pesach means Pesach, the mouth can talk. What does that mean? What's the relationship of the holiday to a mouth talking? Now we understand why the mitzvah on Pesach is we should open up our holy mouths and we should talk. We should talk holy words. We should speak godly words. And that's what we do at the Pesach Agada. Laman Tesaper, the Torah says, you should relate Ba'aznei bincha, on the ears of your children and your grandchildren, all the miracles that God has done and performed for us. Why is the idea so much related to speech and to the mouth? And that is because the difference between Pesach by night is when God opens up the doors to redemption. We go out of exile to redemption. When a person is in exile, they have their thoughts. There's no problem of thought. They have their thoughts and they can think their thoughts. Their inner world is not really disturbed. They have a mind, they have intelligence, and they have emotions, and they can fill themselves completely with their intelligence and their emotions. Could be their captives are keeping them busy with other things, but in general, the inside world of another human being, no one can control. You can't control what I will be thinking. You can't control what I will be feeling. You can't control what I will understand. You can try to force me to think and to feel and to understand the way you want me to, but I don't have to do that. You have no control over it. The area that when someone is in captivity is being controlled by their captors is expression. That means I can't express my feelings, thoughts, ideas to the outside because you're keeping me locked up. I don't have a pen. I don't have a microphone. I don't have an ability to be able to express my ideas to the world. That's the idea of captivity. So the real exile was the exile of the mouth. The mouth is the entity of expression. That's where most of who we are and what we are comes out to the open, expressed into the world, is through our mouths, in which we can speak our mind, speak our feelings, speak our ideas. Now, the Jewish people are a very, very important contribution to the world, and it's very important that the Jewish people have a mouth, because they're the mouth of godliness. Through the Jewish people, godliness gets expressed into the world. And that's why when we were in exile, we couldn't talk. The going out of Egypt, God opens our mouth and he tells us, talk. Tell the world of the miracles. Speak about the power that is above nature. Speak about the creator that is created and sustains and makes everything and controls everything. You're the one who has that inner knowledge. You can speak. You can transmit the divine light into the world through your power of speech. So Pesach, as we celebrate, the Pesach, the mouth can talk. And that comes particularly at this part of the Seder, where we open our mouths and we start talking. And now, on a deeper, more mystical level, it's not only that we, during the time of exile, we, the people, cannot talk and share godly ideas, but the entire divine realm of God's mouth is shut, is closed. God doesn't have a word in this world. That means there's a whole lot on the deeper levels of the divine. There is no concealment. God's thinking what he's thinking, he's feeling what he's feeling, he's knowing what he is knowing. There is no impediment. There is no disturbance. But where is the disturbance during the time of exile? Godliness is not showing itself into the world. Into the actual world itself, there is silence. And that's why people say, during the time of exile, for instance, regarding the Jewish people go through, as a people, we go through immense persecutions and suffering and pain and misery, and who knows, whatever kind of atrocities that were done, that are still seeking to be done by the people at the Ivy colleges right across the country, who are calling for the murder of Jews, who are claiming, we are all Hamas. Can you imagine that? We are all Hamas. That means we are all butchers of babies. We want to come into your countries. We want to come into your lands. We want to come in and kill your wives, your children, do all this horrible stuff that Hamas has done on October 7th. Right? It's still happening today. They still want to do it. Thank God for law and order. And they will not be able to do, and thank God for God's protection, that they will not be able to perpetrate what they want. But when we watch a world and when we see forces of evil and forces of darkness running rampage in the world, obvious question that everybody asked, and it's the question that everybody asked during the Holocaust: where is God? Why is God not intervening? Why is God so silent? Why is he silent? He's not even protesting. He's allowing it to happen. And that is because the exile is a time when the divine mouth is muted. That's the way it is. There's verses in Psalms in where it says, Ne'elamti dumiya. King David says, I have been muted. I am silenced. But when King David speaks, he's not speaking his own words. He is speaking the words of the Shekhinah. We know that King David is the embodiment of Shekhinah. Shekhinah is the divine mouth. And the divine mouth that's supposed to express itself cannot express itself. Obviously, it's because by divine decree that God silences his own mouth, in which his own mouth is muted and it cannot talk. Hashem cannot talk. And that's the idea of Galut HaShechina, the exile of the Shechina, that Hashem is muted and he cannot speak. On a deeper level, it's not only that we want to see miracles, even just nature itself. When God created the world, no, I shut it because it was better lighting with it shut. In nature itself, the all of existence, all of creation, all of reality is really divine speech. When God created the world, God said, let there be light. God said, let there be a firmament, and that came about, created the sky. God said, let there be trees, let the earth give forth vegetation. And there was vegetation, trees and plants and all beautiful flowers. Yesterday, I took a little hike. Before Pesach, I was busy, but my wife says, we have to go on a hike. I can't begin to tell you. I went to there's a park over here called Rills Rogers. You go there, I can go there many times, but it's not after the rains. Now it rains so much in Southern California. You just take a walk, and I never went on this hiking path. It was so magnificently beautiful. There were so much variations of greenery. Every type of plant. It was so beautiful, and all kinds of flowers. It's the wildflower season. Just unbelievable. And no one planted it. This is all God just said, let there be vegetation. It's like walking in botanical gardens. It was just so refreshing, together with all the birds singing. It was great. But the all of this is what? It's divine speech. God spoke, and that's how there is a blue sky. And that's how there is an ocean with crashing waves. And that's how there is birds and animals and plants and trees and stones and minerals and us and everything. All of existence is God's speech. All that is God's words. But when we live in a world and we walk around and we are oblivious to the fact that there is a creator creating us all, a loving creator pouring his love into each and every one of us, giving us life. The energy of the creator is pulsating in all of creation and in all of existence, and yet we have no clue. And all we see is the stuff, but we don't see the energy creating and bringing about all this stuff. That's exile. That's because the divine has muted itself. He creates and sustains us with a thundering, powerful voice, and yet he mutes it, that no one can hear it, not even a whisper. There's a verse that says, Nichar groini, my throat is hoarse. God is hoarse. Like a person is hoarse. They try to talk, but they can't talk. There's nothing coming out. God's voice is not heard. And then instead of God's voice, there's all the thundering noises, all the things that block God, all the people. Sometimes you see, the other day I had some, it's amazing to watch people that, I don't know, I can't explain anything else but an overinflated ego that's so desperate for attention. It's people that have these engines in their cars that every time they push the gas, it makes such noise, it shakes the whole block. Why? What in the world do you get out of it? I just don't get it. And I do get it. It's people that need to be told every second, they need approval. I exist, I exist, I exist. So if everybody in their street doesn't turn their head to notice they exist, then they have no other existence. There's no meaning to their existence other than the fact that they can make noise. So what is your major existence? The fact that you have the means to have a car, and you're so silly to be able to make an engine that just makes a whole bunch of noise, and that's what gives you certification that you exist. But sadly, that's why we have to reach out to humanity and help people have deeper meaning in their life. You are infinitely more worthy than that. I wish I can tell this individual. You have so much light in your soul. I don't care who you are. If you're God's creation, you have light in your soul. You have wisdom, you have knowledge, you have talents. You can share, you can do something, you can make a contribution, whatever it is. You can paint a house to be more beautiful. You can garden. You can, I don't know what, you can sweep a floor and make it nicer, make it more pleasant. It's a contribution. Every human being can contribute. Maybe you can sing something. Maybe you can make a song. Maybe you can play an instrument. So many things you can do. Sadly, all you have now is to make a noise with your car. But sadly, all these noises that people make expressing their own egos covers, if God is not a horse on his own, the other noise that's outside in the world is covering God's voice, covering the sounds, the amazing divine sound that is bringing all of creation into existence. But that's the time of exile. But when Mashiach will come, very soon when Mashiach will be here, and what's going to happen? The verse says, V'nig l'kvod Hashem, the glory of God is going to be revealed. V'ro kol basar, and all flesh will see. What will all flesh see? Kipi Hashem diber, that the mouth of God has spoken. God is going to turn up the volume, and we're all going to hear his voice. When we hear the birds in the trees, we're going to hear God's voice of the power that's creating these birds. When we're going to hear the forest singing, we're going to hear the divine chant. We're going to hear a chant coming. We're going to realize it's the Shekhinah speaking. In the crashing sounds of the ocean waves, we're going to hear God. We're going to hear Hashem in the movement of the planets. We're going to hear God in every bee that buzzes, and every leaf that flutters, every sound, every song that every human being is going to sing. The underlying sound that's beneath it is the sound of God that is going to be heard in every element of creation. That's the idea of Magid. Magid means we open up the holy voice, the holy sound. Each and every one of us is really, as Jewish people, we are a little piece of the Shekhinah. When we give our voice and we sing to God, when we sing out the praises of God's miracles, of God's providence in the world, at that moment, God is speaking through us. And eventually, the sound of God himself is going to be heard over our voices and through our voices. That's the idea of Magid. And that's why the first letter, the first word we say in Magid is Ha. Ha lachma anya. This is the poor man's bread. But according to the Nusach of the Ari, we don't say Ha lachma anya, we say Hey lachma anya. Hey, spelled with a Hey. Hey is the letter, the last letter of God's name, which is the Shekhinah, which is the attribute of Malchut, which is the element of divine speech. So when we begin and say Magid, we're turning on the voice, we're giving Hashem a voice, and God, the Shekhinah, is talking. We're hearing the cosmic sound, the cosmic voice, the voice of everything, the voice of all of existence. It's revealing itself. And through our expression of this voice during the Seder, this voice is really now going to give expression during the time of Moshiach for God's voice to be heard thundering throughout all of creation, both thundering and also gently. This is the voice that we are going to hear. So now, as we stand seconds before the redemption, have a little meditation when you do Magid. Think about the incredible moment that is about to happen, when the voice of the Shekhinah is going to be heard, when the singing sound of the Shekhinah is going to be heard throughout the entire world, where God is going to be speaking, and we're all going to hear that sound of Hashem speaking, that which has never been heard ever before, but now it's going to be heard. That's the meditation for Magid. And now we continue further in the Haggadah. We come to after the halachma anya, after the poor man's bread. We come, and maybe that's why we also talk about the poor man's bread, because in order to hear God's voice, we have to tone down our egos. And lachma anya, remember we said yesterday in the end of the class, we break a bread so that we introduce the poorness into our lives. We impoverish a little bit our own egos. We deflate it. We bring ourselves to a sense of the poor man who has a little bit of humility. And in that humility, we make space for God to rise, for God's voice to rise. So that's why the beginning is the halachma anya. That's the opening of the voice. The deflating of our own egos allow us, the matzah inside of us allows us to hear God. And now we move into the next stage, and that is the manishtana. Manishtana is the 4 questions. And the 4 question is where the child has to ask a question. The children, here's where one of the main parts of the Seder, because the Torah tells us, when your child will ask you, and you shall answer your child. Your child will ask. So we know that there are 4 questions. The children ask 4 questions. And what are the 4 questions? Why is this night different from all the nights of the year? And we go through, every night we eat all kinds of bread, rolls, muffins. Tonight we only eat matzah. And then we say, all times of the year we don't dip. We're not into dipping. Maybe we dip. Maybe, it's not like we have to dip. But today we have a dipping feast. We dip at least twice. We're dipping by the Seder. All other nights, we eat all kinds of veggies, all kinds of vegetables. But tonight we eat bitter herbs. All nights we eat on a sitting position. But on the night of the Seder, we eat in a reclining position. These are the 4 questions. Time of the temple, they ask the question, we usually eat cooked meats and other things, but tonight we eat only roasted lamb, right? These were the various questions. And the reason we ask a question is because the Torah says that the entire story of Yetzias Mitzrayim has to be related in a manner of question and answer. Where parents, it's the greatest education project in all of history. Unbelievable. Never in the world has there been a system of such education. Sit with your families, children will ask, and the elders, the parents, the grandparents, the great-grandparents, they will relate. They will answer to their children. That's the story. Passing on the tradition through a question to an answer. However, when I was thinking about this, I was questioning the question. And I was thinking to myself, well, if we're already at the days of Mashiach, in the days of Mashiach, there will not be any more questions. No more questions. So if I understand questions, the whole idea of questions is in the time of concealment, the time of exile, then there is questions. Because we don't see things clearly, so we have questions. And primarily, we have the question of all questions. Why do we suffer so much? Why is there so much pain in the world? Why does God allow so much suffering? Why are there so many tears? Why is there so much hurt? Why is there so much loneliness? Why is there so much darkness in the world? It's the question. Even Moses asked the question. Moses turns to God and says, why have you done bad to your people? The entire world is crying out with a question, powerful question. All of the worlds cry out. Everybody's crying the question. The angels, when the 10 martyrs were being put to death in the most despicable, most horrific manner, the angels cried out with the question, this is the Torah, this is the reward. God, where are you? How do you allow this to happen? It's questions. And we don't have the answers. But we know we have a question. But we know that when Mashiach will come, we're going to have the answer. There won't be any more question. Everything will make sense. We will not need to ask anymore. And even in Torah study, we know the Torah, the way we study Torah is always with question and answer. Anybody that studied a little Talmudic study knows that's the way Jews study Torah. There's questions and there's answer. And then you refute the answer with another question and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. That's how it works. However, we know that when Mashiach will come, God is going to reveal a much deeper part of the Torah, the inner esoteric, inner light of the Torah. And the Zohar says that in the inner light of the Torah, called the tree of life, over there are no questions. Leisham loy kushya. Over there's no question. If that's the case, so I understand the current manishtana. When we're still in exile, we're dealing with questions. But why is it that when we're coming to the time of Mashiach, how should we experience the manishtana, the question and answer, on as we stand now at the threshold of the ultimate redemption, when there will never be a question again? So the answer, the way I thought of it, occurred to me, based on what the Rebbe teaches, that Moshiach is not going to be a magical new world in which the old world is going to disappear and a new world is going to come take its place. That's not Moshiach. Moshiach is a revelation, not a revolution. Remember those words, a revelation, not a revolution. What does that mean? The very same world we are living in right now, with all its details, with all of its parts, with all of its aspects, us, we, who we are, what we are, exactly as we are, with all the possessions that we own, and all the aspects of our personality. When Mashiach comes, we know we're all going to be righteous people, but it doesn't mean our characteristics are going to change. We're going to be the same people, but we're going to be enlightened people. We're going to be God-conscious people. And then we're going to be able to use all of our talents in the godly way in which God meant us to use it. We're going to be able to recognize all the incredible gifts that God has given us. Everything in Mashiach's world is going to be illuminated with divine light, with the brightest light. And therefore the Rebbe says that when you take a look at the word Geula, which is the main word for redemption, the main letters that make up the word Geula is the word Gola. Gola means means exile. 4 letters of the word Geula is Gola. So if Gola becomes Geula, and when Mashiach comes, and the Rebbe asks the question, but how can a word, usually a name, is descriptive? There cannot be a greater change than exile to redemption. They are so infinitely different. How can they share the same word? Not only is the same word, you don't even have to rearrange the letters. A lot of time in Hebrew, you transport the letters. It becomes like we spoke about the name of Elohim yesterday. The more you change, you scrabble the letters, the more it changes. But here it's the same order: Gimel, Vav, Lamed, Hey. The only difference is You add one letter and it becomes from Goyla, Geula. What's the one letter we add? Aleph. What's Aleph? Aleph is the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Aleph is number one. Who is the number one? That's God. What's redemption? Redemption is the exact world that we had with the godly particle revealed. That's what it is. The godly essence of each and every one of us will be able to express itself. So we will have a godly perception of ourselves, a godly perception of our neighbors, of our community members, of every human being in the world, of every object in this world. So everything is going to be used to its godly potential for its divine purpose. Nothing will be misused. Nothing is going to be neglected because we're not paying attention to it, because we're ignoring these talents and these abilities like we discussed yesterday in our class. Our God-given gifts. Everything will come to expression because the godliness of everything will open up. We will be able to see everything. And we will not only be able to see from now on and onward, but we're going to retroactively redeem the entire exile because we're going to realize how everything was godly to begin with. We're going to relearn the story of our lives. We're going to relearn history. We're going to see from day one of creation that everything was magnificently beautiful and magnificently godly. It's just that we didn't see the whole picture, so it looked so dark and it looked so harsh and it looked so painful and it looked so impossible. But then we're going to say, I get it. Oh, do we get it? We won't have any questions anymore. We'll understand. But which world are we going to experience? The very same world that we have now, a world full of questions. So therefore, the idea of Mashiach from the Manishtana, Mashiach is not going to be a new reality. We're okay in that world, no questions. The very same reality where we had so many questions, this very same world where the questions were so intense and so sometimes disturbing, this very, very world is going to be filled with godly light. We know Elijah the prophet, one of his jobs when he comes to announce the redemption, is we say it in the Talmud, there's a word called teku. Whenever the Talmud has a situation where they come to a question and they can't resolve it, the Talmud is like the greatest, most genius rabbis who can resolve everything. But once in a while, they too hit a dead end and they don't know the answer. And they give up. They throw in the towel. They say, we can't figure this out. You know what the Talmud says? One word, teku. You know what teku means? It stands for it's an acronym for 4 words. Tishbi, Yataretz, Kushyos, Ve'iboyos. Tishbi means Eliyahu, Elijah the prophet, who came from the city of Tishbi. So Tishbi, the one from Tishbi, which is Elijah the prophet, Yataretz will answer Kushis, the questions, the Aboyas, and the quandaries. Which means we're going to have Elijah the prophet. We're going to have a divine communication that's going to answer all the questions. But he's going to answer the questions we have now. So part of the world of Mashiach is going to include, it's going to be the world where the questions were illuminated. And here's the thing. The fact that we once questioned, that itself is part of Mashiach's world. Because you see, if everything would have been clear, if we would have seen everything to begin with, if there wouldn't be anything that provokes us to ask from the beginning of time, we would be living in perfect divine truth, but it would be superficial. It would be so superficial. The fact that we've been asking questions for thousands of years, what those questions is that they expanded us. Those questions opened us up. It's like, you see your child sitting and asking you a question. You watch their eyes, they open up wide. That means questions make you expand. Questions open because you're so curious. You want to know. So you stretch yourself. You're asking. You're wondering. The wondering itself expands us. And that expansion makes that when the light finally comes, we take it in so deeply. It becomes so, it registers. We become so one with it, with the answer. So had the godly answers, had the godly light, had the divine illumination of the time of Mashiach just been there all along without the questions, it wouldn't be special. It is infinitely more special because there were questions and we have the answer to the question. So the Geula is going to be made up of a question and an answer. So here's your meditation and our meditation for Manishtana. Close your eyes and imagine every question you have dissolving. Imagine Hine Yamim Boyim, days are coming. And those days are so just a half a centimeter away. The days are coming where there will never be another question. All of our questions will be answered. We will come to a state of an incredible satisfaction. Magid, by the way, the word Magid, which means we said earlier the last meditation, which Magid means to relate, to tell. The numeric value of the word Magid is 57. I saw this in the Agada from Rabbi Yitzchak Ginsburg. So he says Magid is 57, and he says the Magid has to be a question and an answer. So it's made up of two words. Ma is the question, like Ma nishtana, what is this? Or Chacham Mahu Omer, what does the Chacham say when we speak about the four sons? Tam Mahu Omer, what does the Tam say? What does this one say? What does that one say? So it's all a bunch of Ma. And then there is an answer. What's the answer? The answer is Zeh. Zeh means when you can point your finger. This is it. When all the questions we're asking in the time of exile, we're asking Ma, what's going on? The answer is going to be Zeh Hashem Kivinu Loi. This is the God that we've been hoping for. This is Him. So in the Agada, in the story of the Mitzrayim, we keep on answering Zeh, Bavur Zeh, many times Zeh, Matzah Zu, Pesach Zu, Al Shum Ma. Why are we eating it? We have the Ma and we have the Zeh. So Zeh, the numeric value of Zeh is 12. Ma is 45. 45 and 12, 57. So Magid, which is the entire relating Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim, relating the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim, it's made up of questions and answers. Redemption is made up of the experiences of exile being answered, illuminated with godliness. So the Aleph, remember we said Gola is the question. Gola is exile. Exile is a question, a big question mark. That's what exile is. It doesn't make any sense. And what's redemption? What's the Aleph? Aleph is the answer of the question. The divine illumination that answers the question. Once we'll see God is here, we won't need any answers. He Himself is the answer. All questions comes from a void, comes from an emptiness. When God fills that void, there is no questions. Aleph means Aleph Chachma. I will teach you. I will answer your questions. It's all answered. But the redemption experience is the combination of the question and the answer. Let's be excited about the time when all void and all empty space will be filled. We continue to the four sons. There are four sons that approach the Agada. And who are they? It says that the Torah implies that the children that we speak to during the time of during the Seder are different types of children, and they have different types of questions, and each one of those children needs a different type of an answer. So there is a Chacham, the wise son, who asks an intelligent question, a wise question. He's also righteous. He's wise and righteous. So we give him a more sophisticated answer. Then there is the wicked son, who asks a wicked question. What are you guys doing? Doesn't want to have anything to do with it. He rejects it. He means by asking his question, he just wants to find an excuse for his non-participation, so to speak. and we give him a little bit of a strong answer. We put him in his place. And there is but we have to deal with him as well. We can't kick him out. You got to answer. We put him in his place. Then there is a simple son who asks a very simple question. What's this? That's all he asks. What's this? Something is strange going on. What are you guys doing here? So you give him a simple answer. And then there is a child who's so out of it, he doesn't even ask any questions. He's like, just nothing pokes his curiosity. So to him, even though he doesn't ask, the Torah says, engage him, get him involved, and communicate to that child as well. So these are the 4 different types of sons that come to the Seder. The Lubavitcher Rebbe said that nowadays there is a 5th son. And those are the Jewish children that don't even know that there is a Seder happening. And those are the children that we have to seek out and make sure to bring them to our Seder, because they don't even know there is a Seder. That's the 5th son that's not even mentioned in the Haggadah. But in any case, the Haggadah has 4 sons. So what is this? How can we see this in Moshiach's times? So let's start with the wise son. The wise son is very simple. When Moshiach will come, all of our children will be very wise. All of the Jewish people will be very wise. All of the world will be very wise. Wisdom, as we said before, illumination, enlightenment, a time of expansive mochen, like we discussed yesterday in the part 1 about the 3 extra lands that would be given. Rambam says, "Lefikach Yisrael chachamim gedolim," that Israel is going to be incredibly wise. There's going to be an infinite knowledge. The knowledge will continue expanding, and Moshiach will be teaching Torah like never before. So the meditation on the wise son. Think about all of our future children, how wise they will be, how amazingly learned they will be, how they will know all of the Torah, and more and more and more and more. That's an exciting thing to think about. And then we come, but that's the easy one. Then we come to the wicked son. What's the story with the wicked son? How do we relate to him in Mashiach's world? And the answer to that is, he is very, very crucial to the Seder, the wicked son. You have a question? The wicked son is very, very, very crucial. Why is the wicked son so crucial? Without him, we don't have Mashiach. We can't even have the redemption. If everybody would be righteous, and everybody would be holy, and everybody would be, going along with the program, we don't have a geula, we don't have a redemption. The reason is because the redemption must come through the process of tshuva, of redemption, of repentance. And it's not only because in exile we sinned. Because we sinned, so now we can't get out of exile until we rectify it. Even if we hadn't sinned, we would have to do tshuva. And since it's much easier to do tshuva when you sin, because when you're not sinning, it's hard to do tshuva because you're kind of feeling good about yourself. There's nothing, you don't really feel the need to do tshuva, the need in repentance. But when you sin, then you have something, dark, a dark spot. You're feeling bad. You're feeling terrible. So then you can do tshuva. But here's the idea: the reason why does redemption require tshuva? And the Rebbe speaks about this in many places. Hypothetically, if we wouldn't have sinned, could we have the third temple? Could we have the revelations in the time of Mashiach? And the answer is no. It's not only a technical thing because we sinned, we need to do teshuvah. We cannot have the future times without tshuva. Tshuva meaning repent. The reason is because the tzaddik, the righteous person who serves God with his limited appreciation and understanding of who and of why God should be served. He has and therefore and he's inspired with a limited inspiration based on his limited knowledge. No matter how much we study and no matter how much we learn, we're always only within limitation. And therefore, the inspiration that comes from our knowledge is also limited. The drive is a limited drive. And when we're reaching for God with a limited energy, then God responds as well with a limited energy. And that's not redemption. Redemption is going to be when God's infinite light, God as he is in all of his infinity, is going to reveal himself in this world. For that, we need a trigger to trigger the infinite. How do you trigger the infinite? When you serve God with an infinite energy. How do you serve God with an infinite energy? You only serve God with an infinite energy when you're doing teshuvah. Because tshuva means it bothers you. And it bothers. And you're so frustrated. That frustration causes you to break down and you just like explode. That's the rapture of the soul. The soul can't stand its separation from God. And that's infinite because there's a spark of God inside of us, but it's not triggered unless it's stressed out. It's stressed out by the sins. It's stressed out by the barriers. It's stressed out by the darkness. The stress creates pressure, and the pressure causes it to explode. And that's what produces the redemption. So the ones who are really responsible for redemption are the sinners that are turning, the wicked son, not the wise son. It's good to have a whole bunch of wise children, and we all pray that our children should be wise and righteous. But when we end up with a wayward son that's going in all directions, let's not underestimate who this power of this child is. They're taking a detour. They too are coming back. Every soul will make its way back to God. Some of them in a direct way, some of them through pain and misery. But those who take the painful route, in the end up with a deeper connection coming from tshuva. And that's why we say it in the Rebbe says, we say it in the message to the wicked son. When we tell him harsh words, when he asks his wicked question, one of the answer that we give him is we tell him, if you would have been in Egypt, you would have not have been redeemed. We basically tell him off. We're saying, you know what? Based the way you behave, you don't deserve to come out of Egypt. And had you been there, you would have not gone out. Like we know, many Jews didn't go out. So the Rebbe, however, that's the way most people understand it. And therefore, you're not worthy for redemption. You're a loser. You're not worthy for redemption. The Rebbe, however, sees it differently. The Rebbe says, if you look at the words, you're saying, if he would be there, he would not have been redeemed. Back in Egypt, he would not be redeemed. Because that was a first run. That wasn't the final godly revelation. So it was possible for souls not to participate. Not everybody jumped on the bandwagon on the first opportunity. Some people decided to stay and they didn't go out of Egypt. But since this redemption is the grand conclusion, and over here we say no one will be left behind, because a soul is a piece of God, and a piece of God is inextinguishable and therefore cannot remain severed from God. Every soul must come back. So what we are saying is exact opposite. We're saying to the wicked son, you know, your wickedness, it was worked in Egypt. Now, as much as wicked as you'll try to be, God will catch up with you. You will turn around and you too will be part of the Seder, part of the experience. You can push it off today, tomorrow. Eventually, you're also coming back. Everybody's coming back. But the point over here is retroactively, the reason he or she went astray is so that they can come back and trigger the infinite light. Only they can do it. The perfectly righteous cannot do it. So what's our meditation? Our meditation is we're coming to a time when all the wicked and all the sinners and so on and so forth that have all chosen whichever paths they're choosing are going to do tshuva. No spark of God is going to be lost. No Jew will be left behind. So if you know someone or your heart is in pain because of a family member, or even you're feeling terrible about your own sins, realize that the only true reason why that happened was so that you can turn around your darkness. Gam Rasha, there's a verse that says, also the wicked, liyoim ra, for a bad day, the simple meaning. The deeper meaning is, even the wicked is only here from God's perspective so that he can take bad and turn it into day. Only the wicked takes darkness and turns it into light. Can take the exile and turn it into redemption, like we discussed earlier. So that's our amazing meditation for the Russia, thinking about everybody will do tshuva. Now let's talk about the third son. The third son is the Tam. What's his relationship? Tam is the simple son. What's his relationship with the time of Moshiach, with the ultimate redemption? It says in Hayom Yom, sometimes we wonder, if God created something so amazing called intelligence and knowledge, why did he make some people with a lesser capacity for understanding? There are people who are bright, who love studying, love knowing, and there are people who are very simple. And if you try to study and learn with them something or enlighten them, they just don't get it. They don't have an understanding. They're simple. And sometimes we wonder, why would God deprive an individual from the greatest gift possible? Knowledge is such a great gift. Why are there people who don't have that capacity? They really don't have the capacity. Why? And the answer to that is a little bit similar to what we spoke about, the difference between the wise and the wicked. See, when you're wise and you have understanding, in a sense, your mind ends up acting as a trap. Because, the mind can only conceive and only understand and only connect to a certain with a certain limit. We can continually expand our limit, but it still is with a limit. Someone who's simple, and as a result of this simplicity, but they have a good heart, and their heart is in a good place. They're a simple soul, but they're a soul. So they're a holy soul, but a holy soul of simplicity. So a person like that connects to the Torah and connects to God just without any sophistication, just with simplicity. And precisely because of that, they are touching and connecting to the beyond sophisticated elements of God, higher than all the definitions and lights and the names and expressions of God. The simple people connect to the very, very, very essence of God himself. The essence of God is very simple. It's not complicated and it's not complex. It just is. Simple people that do mitzvot, and here's the beauty of the simple people. The simple people are sincere. When you are wise and intelligent, there is always a little monkey business going on. There's always a little something. But the simple person has the greatest sincerity. Now, that sincerity is something that is underappreciated. The Jewish people have always been a people that admired scholarly work, scholars, sages. Those who know were always the ones who respected. Moshiach is going to come. He's a poor man riding on a donkey. And he is going to find company with the simple people. He, in a sense, I would say, is going to ignore all the rabbis. And he's going to sit down in the synagogue together with the simple painters or builders, the people who do the physical labor, the simple people who don't have much of a head to understand. Not that simple laborers don't necessarily have, but I'm giving an example. People that generally would be the class of people that are extremely simple and that really are simple. And Mashiach is going to sit with these people. He's going to find a company with them more than with the most. He's going to teach the sophisticated. He's going to teach, but who is he real? Who is going to be his cup of tea? The simple people. And Moshiach is going to reveal. That's what we say in Hayom Yom on Hey Tevis. Hayom Yom is a book with little Hasidic teachings. So for the 5th day of Tevis, which is a very special day in Chabad, there is a little teaching that the Rebbe teaches. He says when Moshiach is going to reveal the quality of the simple people. Who started this? Where did the simple people start rising amongst the Jewish? When did we start acknowledging that there's something special about the simple people? Anybody that knows anything about Hasidism knows that the Baal Shem Tov was the one who began to pay attention to the simple people. And he surrounded himself with the simple people. And his students that were great Kabbalists and knowers were baffled by the amount of love and care he gave to the simple people. And the reason why the Baal Shem Tov did that is because the Baal Shem Tov is the beginning of Messianic experience. The Baal Shem Tov is already the soul of Mashiach. He can see the beauty of simplicity. And that's the simple son. Imagine being able to appreciate within ourselves, within people around us, and have an admiration. You know, in Hasidic circles, the greatest rabbis and biggest scholars were envious of the sincerity of the simple water carrier who didn't know anything, but when he would come to shul and he would take the lulav and the esrog on Sukkot and he would shake it, there would be something so beautiful and sincere. He doesn't understand what he's doing, what is he affecting. It's just the pure will of God that he's doing with wholesomeness and purity. He's connecting essence to essence. And the scholars would envy and say, if only I could get past my mind and just reach the purity of heart of the simple individual. But the real beauty of the simple people will be revealed in the days of Moshiach. And maybe we will be able to find and become ourselves a little simple. So let's meditate on the beauty of simplicity when we think about the simple son. And then we'll understand that as great as the gift of knowledge is, there is even a greater gift of sincerity and simplicity that is with the people that aren't necessarily the smartest and the brightest. And now we come to the last child, the she'eino yedei lishel child. Just give me a minute. Sorry, everyone. I ordered some waters, and from a shopping company, and they're telling me they're out of the items. So I'm just gonna have to communicate here for a minute. Bear with me for a moment. I told you it's a busy time. Okay. We come to the last child. Who is the last child? The child that doesn't have any questions, doesn't know how to ask any questions. What does that mean in the Mashiach? Please just want to get his answer. I'm sorry, everyone. Just bear with me for one moment. Okay, sorry. So who is this Ein Yodea Lishel? Who is this child that doesn't know how to ask a question? What does this mean on the deeper level? You see, we spoke earlier about the Moshiach's world, which is a world in which we are going to experience godliness after we've asked questions. Thousands of years of concealments and darkness. And then after the concealments and the darkness, then we're going to have, good. After the concealment and the darkness, we're going to have an answer. And in a way, we discussed that is going to be very, very deep, because the fact that we wanted and longed for an answer, when the godly light finally illuminates, it's so precious. But what we need to appreciate is that there is also a quality of people who never knew darkness, people who never were ignorant, people who are from the get-go living in truth. There is a certain strength to their truth because it's not possible to be anything else, because they never knew anything else but the truth. What am I referring to? When Mashiach will come, there will be the people that will be born after the redemption, who never knew a world of suffering, never knew a world of tears, never knew a world of pain. Children are going to be born in an enlightened world. Children that are going to experience just goodness and just blessing. Will there be anything to these children special over those who have scars and wounds that have been healed? And the answer is yes, of course. Because although there is a tremendous quality to coming to light after darkness, so much so that for that purpose God put us through the ringer of thousands of years of all this concealment, but there is a certain clarity that those who never lived in darkness are going to have. Now, this concept is very deep, because it says in the writings of the Ari that all of our souls were really once included in Adam's soul. We are all souls that were once included in Adam's soul. When Mashiach, right? Everybody. And then, we all come down at any time of history, we come down. So Adam is the sum totality, Adam Arishon, the first human. He included all of us. Now, Adam himself brought upon himself the darkness. Through the sin, plunged into darkness. So the experience of divine concealment and separation is embedded in every single soul. But it says that after Mashiach comes, new souls are going to be born into this world. Souls that were not part of Adam's soul. Completely beyond, outside of Adam. They were never part of this. So not only weren't they here now or last year or throughout all these times, they were just never even part of the first human experience of Adam. They're in a whole much higher level. Those are those new souls. So those souls are beyond a question. They're outside of the realm of asking questions, because questions come from concealment. So that could be when it says there is a child who doesn't know how to ask. This is referring to the new future children that are going to be born after Mashiach, the new souls that never lived in a world of questions. Imagine how beautiful the world will be, how precious it will be to know these new people that will have insight and will have purity, a purity that can come only from a person who never knew the concealment, that never knew the darkness. In a sense, the perfect tzaddik. This is the other quality. We said earlier there's a great quality of the Baal Tshuva, of the penitent, but there's also a great quality in the tzaddik. But these are like the perfect tzaddikim, and therefore there is no question. There was never a possibility for a question. So we can meditate on our Seder, on our children or grandchildren or great-grandchildren, who will be the new souls coming to the world, who don't know how to ask a question and even know what a question means, because they have, from the get-go, just absolute clarity. So these are 4 children as they relate to the coming of Moshiach. Let's go a little further and let's engage. I didn't get a chance to figure out or to think much on the part of this Seder that talks about the 10 plagues. What's the significance of the 10 plagues in the future, other than the fact that it says that God will bring back again in the time of Mashiach, the 10 plagues. Some people are saying that interesting things were happening in Iran this week. There was a certain flooding that caused water to look red. I saw pictures of it. True or not, I didn't verify it, but I saw videos of it. It's interesting. They also say that rivers have been overflowing in certain parts of Iran, and there is and crocodiles, which are like the frogs, which according to one opinion was crocodiles. So it's interesting. Whether yeah or no, I don't know. So I'm not going to give you a meditation on the 10 plagues, but let's move forward to the very important part of the Seder, and that is we go to the eating of the matzah. I'm going to skip the rachza, the washing, because we are short in time. I also don't have a very clear understanding of what I thought of something, but I didn't develop it yet. So let's skip. Let's go to the matzah and think about what kind of meditation we can have when we're eating the matzah, in terms of eating the matzah with a Moshiach consciousness. So what I thought of is as follows. Matzah is a flat bread. It represents the complete nullification of self. Nullification of self. A nullification, however, that doesn't come from just nullifying. It comes from a revelation. In the time when we went out of Egypt, there was an extraordinary revelation of God. And being that God, and the revelation of God was felt not only in the spiritual worlds, but it was felt all the way down in matter itself, in the material world. So much so that the bread, now understand, if you come in, let's just explain this very simple. A person that feels themselves very, very important, extremely important, right? But when they usually come in front of a person that is so much more important, then they don't feel so important. They get a little deflated. Someone who's arrogant because they have a lot of wealth. Okay, but then they come into a room and Bill Gates is there with Jeff Bezos, together with the guy from Facebook, whatever his name, the richest people in the world. So maybe you have $30 million in the bank, but these guys have $30 billion. So suddenly, you think you're such a machar, you think you're such a, so you have such power, suddenly you realize you're in nothing. You shouldn't even be in their company. I mean, not from because who are you? You don't belong here. Yeah. What do you have already? Right? So you see, and the same is obviously someone who thinks of themselves very smart, very intelligent, but when they suddenly come into the presence of the likes like Albert Einstein and other great super geniuses, you feel small, you feel insignificant with all your knowledge. You think you're such a great scientist, and you're not such a great scientist in front of the giants. And if you think you're pretty righteous, if you come in front of the great tzaddikim, again, you become a nobody. When someone would walk in front of a king, you would become nothing. That's why people would bow. What's the idea of bowing? Bowing means I realize I'm flat. I go on the floor. I don't even know where to put myself. I'm so nothing in front of your excellence, your greatness, your honor, your majesty. When God, the master of all of existence, reveals himself, everything becomes nothing. No one can rise. God was felt so strongly at the time of the Exodus that even the physical dough felt God's presence and could not rise. That's the real reason why the matzah didn't rise. It became deflated. Now, however, we know that when we went out of Egypt, so when we eat the matzah, we're in which dimension of our psyche did we receive this godly revelation? We said before it affected us even physically. But we know that a day after the going out of Egypt, we know we weren't transformed suddenly and all became righteous people. The biggest proof, we still have sinful desires and wants, even though as a collective, we ran out of Egypt and we had this incredible revelation, and it should have burnt out our ego completely. Why is it that we still have non-godly, a non-godly persona inside of us that sometimes desires completely the opposite of God and sometimes has the audacity to behave contrary to God's explicit will and do things we shouldn't be doing or neglect what God wants us to do? We all know we're capable of that. Everybody knows. But hold it, didn't we go out of Egypt? Didn't we experience Sinai? The answer is, you'll say, well, it was coming thousands of years ago. It wasn't me. It was my great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather and great-great-great-grandmother. But I'll tell you a secret. It's not just you, and it's not just your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great ancestor that went out of Egypt also continued having evil inclination. Also did not become a tzaddik. If you take a look at the Jews in the desert, you see they keep on sinning. And then when they went into the land of Israel, boy, oh boy, is there are they sinning. The evil inclination didn't leave them. The reason is because their egos were not completely deflated. It was only a temporary experience that happened that night. Then they went back to being full of self. God again became distant and they filled themselves with their own ego, even though they had such a powerful experience of God, but it disappeared. The reason for that is because it didn't really register in their bodies. It primarily was experienced in their souls. So on a soul level, we became very holy. And that doesn't change. That's why everybody in their soul only wants to do what God wants. When we want to sometimes do anything outside of God's will or contrary to God's will, that's because we're not in touch with our soul. We're in touch with our body, its body consciousness, and its animal consciousness, which is the animal. We all have an animating part that is not our soul. But our higher soul is always devoted to God. Why? Because when we went out of Egypt, we experienced the revelation and we became a matzah. At least our soul became a matzah, became unleavened. But our rest of our body, our rest of our consciousness did not. Momentarily, everything about us was impacted. But as soon as the revelation went away, we reverted back to our old selves. The quality of the days of Moshiach is that when the Geula comes and we're going to experience a revelation of God equal to what happened in Egypt, and not just equal, but so much greater than what happened in Egypt, that revelation is going to become permanently embedded into not just our souls, but also into our animal and into our body, our animal consciousness and into our body. And it's going to last forever. That's why we know we will not have any evil inclination ever again. So really we might say is as follows. For thousands of years we're eating matzah. Our soul is eating matzah. Our body did not really digest the matzah. The ma means the flattening of the matzah. Matzah is the numeric value of matzah is 135. It's the numeric value of 3 times the word ma. Ma is 45. 45 times 3 is 135. Because the matzah infuses into us a surrender, an abnegation in front of God. But here's the meditation for Mashiach. We should be so excited that when Mashiach is going to come, the matzah, the ma that is permeating our soul, our complete nullification before God, our deflation of ourselves, which is, by the way, life-giving. We should never get scared of the deflation of our egos because our egos are death. The deflation of ego means more unified with the deepest truth, which is God. Not we cease to exist. We certify our existence a billion times more because we become infinitely more alive because we don't exist as us. We exist as an expression of God. True existence, permanent existence, an existence that cannot die, an existence that's eternal. So now our souls are eternal, but our bodies are not eternal. But when Moshiach will come, we will eat matzah, and hopefully already at this Seder, the matzah is going to permeate us. Not just our soul will be filled with faith in God, but it will become the reality of our physical bodies. Everything will be infused with matzah. And that is something to be awesomely excited about, of how the bittul will completely permeate us thorough to every cell in our body. And now, let's do a meditation on the Shulchan Aruch. I'm going to skip the Morah. I have an idea, but it's getting late, and I also not developed that much. The Korech, which is the mixing of the matzah and the making a sandwich of a matzah and a Morah. Let's skip it for now. And let's go to Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch is when we eat a festive meal. And here the meditation is very easy. The festive meal that we eat has to be with delicious foods, wines, everything. Pesach by night, by Passover by night, we're supposed to really feast. And this should give us, close your eyes for a minute before you feast and think about the abundance that is going to be in the time of Mashiach. Now there are times that we don't have, we're lacking. There are times that we are hungry, or we know people that are hungry. Or even if we're not hungry, but we could have improved nourishment. We can have, sometimes we want to have certain things and we can't have them. I'm not talking about super indulgences, but things that we would like to have that would improve our lives. We just can't afford it. We don't have it, and so on and so forth. When Mashiach will come, just in simple words, Maimonides says there will be a toiva to a mishpas, goodness. The world will be in abundance. Umechol hamadanim, and all physical delights, mitzuyim, will be available ka'afar, like dust, like dirt. Everything will be just available. All delicacies, we won't pay attention to the physical pleasure because we'll be so tuned into the divine. But there will be unimaginable abundance. So since you're sitting by the Seder, tell your family about the physical abundance that's going to be. We know, we're seeing in the world already that today's days the world is capable of producing enough food to feed all of humanity with abundance. It's just that we don't distribute. So much goes to waste. That's part of what Mashiach will do. He will direct the world to learn how to share everything that we have with all human beings. There is so much. It just needs to be distributed. And in addition to that, since the temple is going to be rebuilt, God's blessing will be pumped up in this world a gazillion fold. And therefore, the world itself, earth, will produce so much more, so much richer and so much more. And therefore, just physical life will become enhanced without an end. That's our simple meditation for Shulchan Aruch. Now, we come to, there's also the Afikoman, which I'm not going to talk about. There should be a lot to talk about the Afikoman, which is taking out eating the last piece of matzah for the dessert. But I want to focus on the last 3 simanim on the Seder, the benching. In the end of the Seder, we do Beirach. Beirach is we lift the cup and we do Birkat HaMazon. So in the Birkat HaMazon, we say the grace after meals. This is on the 3rd cup of wine. And so what's the Mashiach thought? The Mashiach thought is that it says that when Mashiach will be here, we will partake in a big meal. Seems like it's going to be a communal meal where everybody's invited. And there will be this massive fish called a Leviathan fish. What's going to be on the menu? This big fish. And also this big animal, Shar Habar, which will supply meat for everyone. And then there will be the ancient wine that God has hidden from the 6 days of creation, which, by the way, all of these have enormous spiritual meaning. But in addition to that, it also means a literal feast. At the end of that feast, there is going to be the grace after meal. And it's the cup. We know that in when you may say the grace, there's someone who leads it and holds a cup of wine. So it says they're going to honor Abraham, and Abraham to lead, because he's the first Jew, to lead Avram Avinu, to lead the benching, he's going to decline it. They're going to honor Isaac, he's going to decline it. They're going to honor Jacob, he's going to decline it for whatever reasons. They're going to honor Moses, he's going to decline it. Aaron, the high priest, he's going to decline it. Finally, they're going to honor King David, or as it says, David Malka Mashiach, David the King Moshiach, which really means Moshiach Tzedkenu, who is an incarnation of David, of David HaMelech. And Moshiach is going to lift the cup and is going to say, I deserve to bench. And he's going to lead the benching. It's a story the Talmud tells us. It's going to happen. So now that we're benching, let's think about Mashiach's koshel bracha as Mashiach lifts that cup. What is the significance? What is he doing? What is the meaning? So I was thinking, what does it mean, the end of that meal? The end of the meal, like what happens afterwards? If that's like the meal like we've all been waiting for, that's like the party, everything has been prepared for that. What's the after that? The benching means it's over. Okay, so now what? We're benching. We're thanking God for that. And then the end. What does that mean? So the way I understand it is, again, these are my own thoughts. I didn't necessarily find a source to all of this, and maybe some of it is in my head from the past reading, but these are just the way I understand it is that the feast that is going to happen in the end of Mashiach's days is going to be the culmination of all the sparks of holiness that have been collectively elevated throughout all of history. We know that sparks, divine potential and everything, and the point of us eating in our meals is that we elevate sparks. Moshiach, and that meal is going to be the culmination of all the sparks of holiness, which in general represents the entire aspect of food, of seuda. Seuda actually means a meal, but seuda sometimes means all of human needs. It means all the resources of the world that we used to serve God, and therefore everything has become elevated. So when Mashiach is coming and picks up that cup and he's going to do the benching, he's going to do the grace after meal, every time we elevate sparks, it causes a much higher revelation to come down. That means that the conclusion of that meal really means, at this moment, like the days of Mashiach and all the glorious lights of the days of Mashiach, is divine lights and godly revelations related to what we've elevated, but not the completion of everything that has been elevated. It all ends in the days of Mashiach with this meal. So this meal wraps everything up in terms of elevating. When we conclude this meal, Moshiach is going to elevate the sparks, all the sparks. And when we elevate that spark, he's going to cause the most enormous download. And that's what this benching means. The benching is God responding, the Yesirusah D'Liela, the arousal from above, the divine lights that are coming down as a result of Yesirusah D'Latata, of the arousal from below, of everything that has been collectively elevated throughout all of history. That's the meaning of, and Mashiach is the cup, because David is Malchus, Mashiach is Malchus. Malchus is called the big cup to receive the powerful illumination that's going to pour down as a result of all that which we've elevated. Kais Yeshuais Esa, the cup of salvation he will lift up to receive the boundless blessing. That means that after that meal, what is going to be revealed is on a whole new level. Beyond. And that's why what do we do immediately after the benching? We go to Hallel. Hallel is praise. We are singing the praises, hallelujah, of the new light, of the new revelation that has been produced by all the work. Beirach Moshiach downloads it, and then Hallel, there is the song, this boundless song. So if we can meditate about that experience of Beirach, of Moshiach, lifting it all up. Imagine being part of that meal, watching the sum total work. Every time we've done a mitzvah, every time we've overcome any evil impulse, every time we've strengthened ourselves and we did something against our wish and did what God wants, every time we did anything good, all the goodness that we've ever done, all the tshuva, all the repentance, everything is going up and triggering the greatest response, and the singing and the hallel, the praise of the hallelujah that's going to be afterwards, global. And finally, after hallel, we get to nirtza. Nirtza is a state. Nirtza means satisfaction. That means it means at the Seder, it means if you follow this order, then this is pleasing in God's eyes. God is satisfied with us. What does this mean ultimately? After everything is risen up and God has bestowed the world with all of his blessings, then we've reached the purpose of it all, and then God will be satisfied. But here's the thing. The pleasure that God feels in the satisfaction, how everything came about with magnificent perfection and everything reached its ultimate goal, God's inner delight and pleasure from that, who can ever understand? But at this point, nirtza means we become so one with him. See, this pleasure we can never experience because it's his pleasure. It's him. I can't experience your pleasure. It's your pleasure. I can know and I can derive from pleasure from the fact that you have pleasure. But the ultimate state of existence, it's going to be revealed how the souls are literally one with God. And therefore, the ultimate pleasure that we're ever going to experience, the ultimate satisfaction, is that we are going to experience God's satisfaction. Not that we will be satisfied from the fact that he is satisfied, but his satisfaction itself will be our satisfaction, because at this point, we are one with him. And that's the ultimate state of nirtza. That's the ultimate state of coming full circle, being fully reunified with God. Our souls were plucked from the essence of God. We come full circle back, and we were the ones who produced this pleasure, and now we get to feel and experience this ultimate, blissful, endless, boundless, divine, essential pleasure. And that's our nirtza. May Hashem help us that all this should become completely real and manifest in our lives. We should, and I bless you all to be able to take these meditations and have a beautiful Seder, a meaningful Seder. Let us see Elijah the prophet tonight. Let us see Moshiach. Let us dance the ultimate dance now, and now. Thank you for being here with me.